Oak Ridge Hills was the kind of neighborhood people dreamed of retiring into. Silent cul-de-sacs, trimmed hedges, and flower beds that smelled like serenity. To an outsider, it looked like a haven of contentment. But underneath that perfect suburban skin, secrets pulsed like veins in the dark. Julia Patika stood at the bay window of her two-story colonial home, cradling a mug of chamomile tea. The rain painted the morning in gray, droplets sliding down the glass like tears. Mark had left an hour ago, briefcase in hand, tie knotted with surgical precision, not sparing her a kiss goodbye. There was a time, 8 years ago, when Julia would wake to breakfast in bed, handwritten notes tucked into her purse, late-night dancing in the kitchen. But love has a strange way of evolving. Sometimes it grows. Sometimes it calcifies into a habit. And sometimes, like in Julia's case, it withers quietly, leaving behind a hollow echo of what used to be. Mark was successful and respected, a man people listened to. Behind closed doors, he was cold. He didn't yell or hit, nothing so visible. Instead, his cruelty was quiet, sharp, like paper cuts. He'd praise her in public, then criticize her cooking in private. They'd tried for children. 3 years of disappointment, hormones, surgeries, and Mark's increasingly impatient questions. Did you take your pills? Did you book the appointment? She'd cried the day the doctor said it was unlikely. Mark hadn't. Their love had become a contract, a performance. Then came Ethan. Ethan arrived with his father one morning in June to fix the irrigation system. Julia answered the door in pajama shorts and an oversized sweater, hair a mess. Ethan was lean, suntanned, maybe late 20s. His father introduced him simply, "This is my boy, he's learning the ropes." Julia noticed his eyes first, sea glass green with flecks of gold. He smiled easily, but not arrogantly. When he looked at her, it wasn't with politeness or pity. It was interesting, real, open curiosity. Over the following weeks, Ethan began showing up more often, always with an excuse to check the system. Julia found herself waiting for him, brushing her hair before he arrived, baking muffins she claimed were leftovers. They talked about music, books, and the places they wanted to travel. He listened, really listened. One rainy day, with Mark out of town for a conference, Ethan stood on the porch, soaked to the skin. When he kissed her, it was slow, deliberate, like he'd been waiting forever. Julia didn't stop him. The weeks blurred together like colors bleeding through wet paper. Julia and Ethan's affair took shape in secret corners of her life. Tuesday afternoons became sacred. He would come around pretending to check sprinklers. Inside, Julia would be waiting, heart racing like a schoolgirl. At first, it was physical, the thrill of stolen moments. But something deeper bloomed. They started talking after, lying in the sun-soaked guest room. "I could build us a life," Ethan murmured, tracing her spine. "Somewhere quiet. Start over." Julia felt both terrified and excited. She hadn't believed in new beginnings for years. But Mark had begun to change, subtly. He was watching her. Not confrontational, just present in a way he hadn't been in years. She found him looking at her over dinner, his eyes narrowed slightly, his smile stiff at the corners. One evening, Julia came across an open tab on Mark's laptop, a surveillance photo of her and Ethan walking too closely. Her stomach dropped. The next morning, she found a single white rose in her car. No note, just the quiet, terrifying message. "I know." "Something's off with Mark," she confessed to Ethan one Tuesday. "I don't like the way he looks at me," Ethan admitted. "It's like he's already decided what I am." Julia begged him to stay away, but their addiction to each other ran too deep. Mark became increasingly attentive. She'd find him looking at her with a calculating gaze. "You seem restless," he remarked one night, his tone casual but cutting. Julia's heart raced. She wanted to scream, to tell him what she was really doing while he was away. But the words tangled in her throat. One night, Julia heard Mark speaking in hushed tones on the phone. No mistakes, paid well, happens clean. The next morning, Mark handed her a set of keys. I booked the cabin. It was the one in the woods, remote. No signal. Julia's skin crawled. Are you serious? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Yes, just us, he said, a smile that didn't reach his eyes spreading across his face. She drove up Thursday evening, her heart racing the entire way. But when she arrived, Mark wasn't there. Instead, Ethan was. He was tied to a chair, blood dripping from a cut above his brow. Julia, he yelled, his voice hoarse. Help me, Julia screamed. Ethan, what happened? Mark, he set me up, Ethan gasped, straining against the ropes. You have to get me out of here. Mark, she yelled, what is this? Mark stepped from the shadows, calm as ever, a chilling smile on his lips. I needed to see it for myself, the betrayal, the filth. He set a pistol on the table between them. You can have him, but you have to earn it. Prove what you're willing to do. Mark, please, Julia pleaded. This isn't necessary. He stepped back, arms folded. Shoot him, or I shoot you. Julia's hands shook as she reached for the gun, tears streaming down her face. Ethan's voice cut through the tension. Don't do it, I love you, you don't have to become him. Love? Mark scoffed. You think this child loves you? You're just another bored housewife to him. Julia aimed the gun, but not at Ethan. She pointed it at Mark. Let him go. Mark lunged, and the gun fired. She missed. Ethan kicked his chair into Mark, knocking him off balance. Another shot rang out, and Julia screamed. When the smoke cleared, Mark was on the ground, blood pooling from his chest. Ethan was panting, free, the rope cut by a shard of glass. Go, he shouted. I'll handle it. Julia stood frozen, the weight of the decision heavy in the air. Julia, please, Ethan urged, desperation lacing his voice, but she couldn't move. Time twisted as she stared at Mark's lifeless body. Then she felt it, a primal instinct to survive. She turned and ran. The police found Ethan cradling Julia, both trembling. The story was simple. Self-defense. The investigation cleared her, but the town of Oak Ridge Hills didn't. Whispers followed her at grocery stores. Smiles turned brittle. Did you hear about Julia? A neighbor murmured. Such a tragedy. Ethan left shortly after the funeral. No goodbye. Just a letter. I had to disappear. What we had was real, but danger always follows me. Julia sold the house and moved to a small coastal town. The waves crashing against the shore felt like a balm to her soul, but the solitude was suffocating. Every morning she would walk along the beach, the salty breeze mingling with her tears. She'd watch the seagulls soar overhead, wondering if Ethan was out there somewhere, free. But some nights when it rained, she swore she heard the creak of the porch and saw sea glass eyes in her dreams. Months passed, and Julia tried to rebuild her life. She found a small job at a local bookstore, filling her days with the scent of paper and ink, the stories she had loved as a child. The quiet comfort of books became her refuge from the chaotic memories of her past. Hey there, a soft voice interrupted her thoughts one afternoon. Julia looked up to see Mark, a new man in town, tall with sandy hair and a warm smile. Do you have a recommendation? He asked, glancing at the shelves. I love anything by Nora Roberts, she said, surprised at how comfortable she felt with him. Mark chuckled. I'll take your word for it. How about we grab coffee after? Julia hesitated but felt drawn to his warmth. Sure, she said, surprising herself. As they sat in a cozy cafe sipping coffee, Julia felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. Mark was easy to talk to, and their conversation flowed effortlessly. Are you from around here? He asked. Not really. I moved from Oak Ridge Hills, she admitted, a twinge of pain tightening her chest. Must have been a big change, he said gently. It was. Julia replied. But I needed a fresh start. As Julia and Mark grew closer, memories of Ethan lingered in the back of her mind. She told Mark snippets of her life but avoided the darker parts. One stormy afternoon, she sat in her living room staring blankly at the wall. The sound of raindrops felt like a reminder of everything she had tried to forget. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I know where you are. Ethan, she whispered, panic rising. Who? Mark asked, concern etched on his face. Just someone from my past, she replied, her heart racing. Do you want to talk about it? He asked gently. I don't know if I can, she admitted, feeling the fear creeping back in. Days turned into weeks, and Julia tried to embrace the new chapter of her life with Mark. They explored the coast, shared quiet evenings, and built a connection that felt genuine. But the shadows of her past loomed large. One evening, as they watched the sunset, Mark turned to her. I feel a connection with you. Something real. Julia's heart raced. Mark, Just let me finish. He took a deep breath. I want to know you, all of you. Whatever you're hiding, I'm here for it. But as they sat together, the rain began to fall and the tension returned. Julia begged herself to let go of the past but felt the weight of her secrets pressing down. One stormy evening, Julia received a call from Ethan. I need to talk to you, he said, his voice urgent. Ethan? Where are you? Julia asked, her heart racing. I'm in town. I need to explain, he said. Explain what? She pressed, anxiety gripping her. Mark is dangerous. You need to listen, he insisted. Julia's heart pounded. How do you know? I've been watching him. He's not who he says he is, Ethan said, his voice steady. I don't know if I can trust you, she admitted, her heart torn. Just meet me, he urged, before it's too late. They met at a secluded cafe, the rain pouring outside. Ethan looked worn, his eyes filled with urgency. Julia, I can't let you go back to him, he said, his voice low. He's involved in things you don't understand. What do you mean? She asked, panic rising. Drugs, money laundering. He's dangerous, Ethan explained. But why didn't you tell me sooner? Julia asked, frustration bubbling to the surface. I thought I could keep you safe by staying away, he admitted, his expression earnest. As they sat together, Julia felt a mix of fear and determination wash over her. She wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered in the back of her mind. The next day, Mark confronted Julia, anger radiating from him. Who were you with last night? He demanded, his voice low. Nobody, Julia replied, her heart racing. Don't lie to me, Mark snapped. I know you're hiding something. Stop it, she shouted, fear flooding her. You don't control me. Julia, you need to understand, he said, his expression shifting. I care about you. Caring isn't controlling, she replied, her voice steady. I won't let you manipulate me anymore. As she stood her ground, Julia felt a surge of empowerment. She was finally taking control of her life, ready to confront the man who had haunted her for so long. The storm outside raged as they faced each other, both refusing to back down. You think you can just walk away? Mark challenged, his voice dark. I'm done living in fear, Julia declared. I'm breaking free. Just then, Ethan burst through the door, fear etched on his face. Julia, he called. You need to get out of here. Mark turned sharply, anger flashing in his eyes. You shouldn't have come back. Ethan stepped protectively in front of Julia. I won't let you hurt her again. Enough, Julia shouted, her heart racing. This ends now. Mark lunged and chaos erupted. Ethan and Mark grappled while Julia stood frozen, fear and adrenaline coursing through her veins. Julia, get out, Ethan shouted, pushing her away. But Julia wouldn't leave him. She grabbed a nearby object, a heavy lamp, and swung it at Mark, the impact stunning him as he stumbled back. Leave us alone, she shouted, feeling the rush of adrenaline. As Mark fell, Julia felt a rush of freedom wash over her. The chains that had bound her for so long were finally breaking. In the aftermath, Julia and Ethan worked tirelessly to gather evidence against Mark. They reached out to contacts and pieced together the truth of his dangerous activities. The investigation cleared Julia, but the town still whispered. "Did you hear about Julia?" a neighbor murmured. "Such a tragedy." Ethan left shortly after the investigation. No goodbye, just a letter. "I had to disappear. What we had was real, but danger always follows me." Julia sold the house and moved to a small coastal town. The waves crashing against the shore felt like a balm to her soul, but the solitude was suffocating. Some nights, when it rained, she swore she heard the creak of the porch and saw sea glass eyes in her dreams. Months passed, and Julia rebuilt her life, finding a job at a local bookstore. One rainy afternoon, a man named Mark entered the shop, and they struck up a conversation that felt easy and familiar. As they spent time together, Julia felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. She was ready to embrace a new beginning, leaving the shadows of her past behind. Julia had fought through darkness and emerged stronger. She was ready to reclaim her life, embracing the new dawn that awaited her.